Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to EduTap. I am Surbi Sardana, and I'm welcoming you to this ACE answer writing session for RBI Grade B Phase 2 examination. If my audio is clear, if you can hear me properly, and if the video is clear, then let me know in the chat section. Just type a thumbs up in the chat section if the audio video both are clear for all the online students. And then we'll begin. Okay, so let's begin. This is ACE answer writing session for RBI Grade B Phase 2 examination. Again, extending a very warm welcome to you, to all of you on our YouTube channel at EduTap. So yes, we have been covering various parts of Phase 2 examination. Alright, Sunil, I got your message. We have been covering various parts of our Phase 2 examination for RBI Grade B. And today we are taking the second class on finance. This is part 2 for finance class. And before proceeding further, I know there are just a few days left, but we have this live crash course running. We have classes every day. Live classes with the actual subject experts that we have at EduTap. Not only this, we'll be providing you with short notes for all the important topics, all the topics that are in a part of your syllabus for Phase 2 examination. Apart from this, mind maps would be given so that you don't have to make your own notes and you can revise better, you can retain knowledge better. After this, there would be current affairs. All these notes would be updated and separate highlighted current affairs are given in each section. If you are struggling with the content right now, if you're struggling with the right direction right now for what you would do in your Phase 2 examination, definitely purchase this crash course. We are offering a flat 50% off. Not just this, with this crash course, you have this amalgamated test series. So a lot of mock tests would be conducted in the exact with the exact simulation that you would be given for in your actual Phase 2 examination, and evaluation of tests would be provided by the experts. And if you feel that you have enough content, you just have to practice, then you can buy the test series individually or in standalone manner as well. So yes. Alright, Debosmita, welcome. So first of all, as I always say, we have completed sessions of almost 1.5 weeks here. So as I always say, just keep this in your mind that you can write great answers. You can always write great answers with the limited amount of content that you have. A student who could be, or an aspirant who's studying more than you or remembers more than you but is not able to express properly, is not able to deliver whatever he or she wants to say, would be behind in the race as compared to you if you practice answer writing on a daily basis with us. So yes, the plan for this discussion is shared on the board. We started on July 14, and today, after taking all the sections for a well-structured answer and taking 4 sessions for ESI, we are here at the second class for finance. This is July 25. We are at the second session for finance, and the timings for these sessions are 3 p.m. every day. From tomorrow onwards, we'll be continuing with management. We'll start management, and that will go on for 3 days. That is till July 28. And this is part of your syllabus. So this part has been done. English has been taken by Narveer sir in the live section. If you go on our YouTube channel, in the live section, you will find all the videos which have been covered by various faculty members on different parts of the examination. This is the part we are focusing on, and here we are focusing on the descriptive portion. That is your 50 marks to be obtained in 90 minutes. So yes, all of you, whether you are old or new, let me remind you again that here we practice using PYQs or previous year questions as well, or questions or topics which are similar to PYQs and are expected in your Phase 2 examination this year. So I request that whatever devices you are using to watch this video, make sure that you have enough, typing things available, whether it's a keyboard, whether you can type with the phone. And even if you watch the recorded session later, you can send various parts of the answer to us. You can type them in the comment section. We do review our comments as well, so definitely do that. For today, we are moving to the last part of finance, that is general topics. These are 9 in number. They include risk management and banking sector. So this is something we are focusing on today. They have basics of derivatives, forward, future and swap. Then you have changing landscape of banking sector. So these two, the first and third topics will be amalgamated and a question would be taken. Recent developments in financial sector, portfolio investment, public sector reforms and disinvestments. Disinvestment policy is a little old and questions from disinvestment have already been asked, so we are not focusing here. Then you have financial inclusion and use of technology in financial inclusion. So use of technology we have seen yesterday as well. So financial inclusion, it's a very simple topic. We are not taking it directly here. Then you have alternate sources of finance, private and social cost benefit, public-private partnership. This is what we are focusing on here because, you know, public-private partnership projects, they are increasing in number. Then you have static portions, corporate governance, the union budget, which has already been covered in various sections. So we are not covering it here again. And then you have inflation. Finally, you have inflation, which has been in news in the past few months or years, let's say. So based on the syllabus, we'll study 2 questions here. We'll discuss 2 questions and all of you will be taking 1 question that you can answer in paragraph format. Till date, all the questions that we have taken here in these discussions have been answered in the pointers format. So for all of you who feel comfortable writing in paragraphs and are not sure how to write those paragraphs, one of the question would be answered in paragraph format. So you will be very sure about it and you'll feel very confident about that approach as well. Then we always take a 4-step approach before approaching our answers, before writing our answers. The first step is finding keywords, that is topics, and the second is identifying qualifying words in the question, that is opinion of examiner. Second is recognizing the directives, whether it's a discuss, explain, justify, what kind of question it is. The third is framing micro questions. To understand the question better, and we ascribe one body part to each of the micro questions to answer all the parts of the question. Then we write a structured answer having introduction, body and conclusion, a designed, a well-structured answer. The structure of the blueprint of the answer is available here. And for the entire discussion, the content that appears, the PDF would be available on our Telegram channel right after this session. So download it from there and check out this answer blueprint. It has different parts for introduction, main body and conclusion. And it sums up the previous lecture. What are you supposed to do in the intro part? What is required in the main body? What are the tips to be kept in mind? What has to be done in conclusion? What has not to be done and what has to be done in the conclusion? Alright, so definitely check this out after the discussion. Now quickly, let's begin writing our answers quickly. Let's see what are the questions for today. Before I display, see if you have to expect some question from the banking sector, which question would you feel? The changing scenario of banking sector or anything associated with banking sector? You've studied so much, you read all the current affairs. Which topic do you feel is highly likely? Yes, Anand, hello. Hello, all of you. So yes, here, there is a prompt for a topic. Just let me know if you feel there is any topic important from the banking sector point of view. Do you feel there is any important topic? Last year, you've been asked about non-banking financial companies, NBFCs. This year, if you have to predict based on previous year papers or the, current situations that are going on in the economy, can you predict any topic of importance? So yes, predictions here are a bit hard to make, but all right. UCB's Urban Cooperative Bank, yes, that's right. Khushbu Kumari, that's right. See, as of now, all the differentiation that had to be done in the banking structure, that has been done. that is already there and that is running in stability. So there is no like current affairs. There is just one important thing which has come to the limelight after this Swiss bank crisis, and that is the, yes, digital initiatives also that can be there. Yes, Keshav. UCB and financial stability report. I hope you have prepared the financial stability report very well, because if RBI grade B, if you are expecting to see a question, what you will see is either direct objective questions from FSR, financial stability report, or a full-fledged questions regarding the features of FSR. All right. So prepare that without fail. NPAs is an old topic because those NPAs, they have been absorbed by Government of India. Risk management bank crisis. Antardrishti by RBI, Silicon Valley debacle. You might not see a direct question regarding the Silicon Valley bank crisis, but what saved Indian economy from getting into crisis? What saved the banks in India? It was the domestic systemically important banks. Yes, that is also right. Success of RBI in controlling inflation. So that is somewhere you can relate with inflation and functions of RBI. That is the topics that we took yesterday. So first of all, just see both these questions are for 400 words today. We are not taking 600 words questions because the agenda is a little different. I need to tell you how to write in paragraphs. So first of all, the question is write a short note on domestic systemically important banks. DSIBs, answer in 400 words for 10 marks. And the second question, as I told you, is regarding public-private partnerships. Briefly discuss the issues associated with public-private partnerships, mode of investment in India. Answer for 400 words in 10 marks. So yes, how many of you know about the first question, domestic systemically important banks? How many of you know what are DSIBs? How many of you know at least the definition of DSIBs? Domestic systemically important banks. How many of you know about the definition or at least the criteria? How DSIBs are selected? All right. Okay. Too big to fail. That's right. That's right, Khushbu. Too big to fail. That is the synonym that we use for these banks. Yes, 2% of GDP. 3 domestic systemically important banks are there. First of all, focus on the word. These are not systematically important. These are systemically important. Important for the system. They are not systematic. Important for the systems. Yes, doable question for Keshav Anand, 2% of GDP. SBI, HDFC and ICICI. These banks are too big to fail and hold 2% of GDP. That's right, Khushbu. Now tell me, how many of you can write 400 words on this topic? The directive here is write. And you have to write a short note on this keyword, domestic systemically important banks. There is no qualifying word here, no opinion of examiner. You just have to write a short note. Means every information that you have, whether that's old information, whether that's technical information, you have some data, or whether that's recent information, you have to include all of it. So how many of you can write this question? How many of you can take this question? Just type a yes or a no so that we proceed further. All right, through systemic risk test done by RBI. All right, Satya. Now let me know, all the live students, let me know in the chat section, how many of you can attempt this question easily? All right, Satya. Just type a yes or no, all of you. How many of you can take it easily? And then let's proceed with it. How will we answer such questions about which we know in brief? But all right, Khushbu can write, Anil can write, Jacqueline can write. Okay. All right. So see, it's written write a short note. Short note indicates that you have to write in paragraph. But yes, you can use a mixture of paragraph and pointers to make your answer clear. Definitely do that. So, all right, Anand, just get well versed with the topic right now. So it's highly likely to appear on the paper. on for this phase 2. So just prepare here. For all the students who are not feeling confident about this topic, just prepare with us here. All right, Mansi, Suvendu, Anand. Okay. Not more than 100 words. That's the problem here. It's for 400 words. The question is for 400 words. All right. So what we'll do is, firstly, I've told you that since it's a short note, you might have to write in paragraph. You might not have separate points to write upon, but you can use a mixture of paragraph and pointers. Here I will display paragraph by paragraph that how to write in the paragraph format. Give me prompts where you feel that, ma'am, this paragraph can be converted to pointers for better presentation. All right, that's how we'll proceed. All right, Keshav. So how will you start this answer? If you have to write a short note on domestic systemically important banks, how will you start this answer? Just let me know. Or what will be the structure of your answer? Let me not just, let's not focus on the introduction today, because we have focused a lot on all the various parts. Let's say you have to decide the structure for your answer. Okay. Obviously, there is going to be an intro and there are going to be body parts. And there is going to be conclusion. So all of you might know the definition of domestic systemically important banks. You might also know the 2% GDP criteria. All right. So definition and this 2% GDP criteria along with the names. What are the DSIBs in India? That can be included in intro. So I've included your 3 points in intro. This is easily 3 lines. Now what will you explain after this? After this, what do you have to write in this topic? Write a short note on domestic systemically important banks. Tell me, are they characterized on an annual basis? Who carries out this classification? Why they are known as too big to fail? And if they fail, then what does the government do? Fourth, are there specific rules or instructions that they have to follow because they are DSIBs, because they are too big to fail, they are big banks. The economy of a country depends on them. And where did this concept come from? You might not know the 5th answer, where did this concept come from? But you can talk about that, yes, the results are released annually by RBI. And these banks, they have to follow a protocol, certain set of instructions which are harsher than other banks. Yes or no? Thirdly, you can talk about that if there is, there are such banks failing or they are in crisis, the government protects them from failing. Yes, the government protects them from failing. Also, your fixed deposits, they are insured by DICGC. If your FDs, if your money is with these banks, that is insured by Government of India up to 5 lakh rupees. So do we have more points to write now? Yes, Keshav, that's very right. The idea of DSIBs or systemically important banks that came out after 2008 financial crisis. That's when your banks failed. Yes, Khushbu, that's right. Its failure can cause significant disruption. Why the need to decide DSIBs? Yes, Anand, that's very right. So now we have more points, right? Yesterday you gave me prompts regarding the DICGC insurance. In the chat section, I saw that money is insured up to 5 lakh. So money is insured in DSIBs. All right. So these are the points you can add. You have to write a short note. You do not have any direction, so you have to decide a direction for yourself. So in the introduction, we'll talk briefly about definition. We'll give a little technical detail. We will not talk about all the technical details because most of the technical details, further ones which we know, they will be talked about in our body parts. Then we'll also talk about the 3 banks which are characterized or classified as DSIBs. All right. We'll also talk about that the 2008 financial crisis that motivated people all around the world, that motivated central bank governors and governments all around the world to classify such DSIBs and protect them. Okay, so this is the raw information that we have at hand. Let's see slowly how we will write this answer, and keep sending me inputs on the way. Even if I'm not asking you for inputs, we'll write paragraph by paragraph, and then let's see how does this question can make sense to the examiner. Yes, regulatory framework. So Vendu, that's right, as per Basel norms. So first of all, the introduction. DSIBs, domestic systemically important banks. First point, you write the full form. After that, use DSIB without any worries. You can use the short form after that. Domestic systemically important banks according to RBI. So this is the official definition. Always write that according to RBI, or according to the organization that's giving that definition, are the banks which have some systemically important, which have become systemically important due to their size, cross-jurisdictional activities, complexity, and lack of substitute and interconnection. I'm sure you must have read this definition. This is the official definition of DSIBs. Even if you cannot remember all these 4-5 factors, at least remember 3 and write them down in your examination. After reading it, it would become easier for you to write at least 3 factors. In other words, DSIBs are the banks which are too big to fail. You can use inverted commas for these. Too big to fail. Banks whose assets exceed 2% of GDP are considered part of this group. As of March 2023, 3 banks, with SBI, HDFC and ICICI, have been characterized as DSIBs, although more banks are slated to be added to this category in future. This was the recent news that we need more DSIBs, more banks in DSIB category. Alright, so what we've done? Definition. Then we talked about a synonymical word for them, synonymical term for them, too big to fail. Finally, we gave the 2% GDP criteria for classifying them, and then we ended up talking about that as of March 2023. See, when you write the date, in March 2023, RBI gave us this classification. When you write this date, your answer appears more informed. If you write it straightforward, that these are the banks which have been characterized, or these 3 banks are there which are DSIBs in India, then it appears uninformed. So that makes your answer a little informed answer. 3 banks, SBI, HDFC and ICICI. So that's what we did. 4 lines, enough for your introduction. Alright. So what do you want the second paragraph to be? What do you want the second body part to be? Will you explain about DSIB more, or will you talk about its history? Will you talk about their history, or will you explain about this? Do you have anything more to explain here? Let's see what the body part 1, that is the second paragraph of your answer. Body part 1. Here we are talking about history. Where did this identification or this classification come from? So body part 1 will focus on history, and from history we'll come to the present in the subsequent paragraphs. Slowly, if this paragraph is about history, you will talk only about history. You will not give what are the present banks in India. That we've already written in our introduction. And in history, you will not write anything except for history. Alright. You can show an interconnection with present, but that will be your last line. Okay. So write down the concept of identifying global systemically important banks, GSIBs. We have taken this idea of DSIBs, domestic SIBs, from GSIBs, global SIBs. Began with the experience of global financial crisis, when it was observed that problems faced by certain large and highly interconnected financial institutions, that is banks, hampered the orderly functioning of the financial system, which in turn negatively impacted the real economy. So it was in the 2008 financial crisis that it was realized that these banks, which are first of all large and highly interconnected, Go back to your introduction. What was the definition of DSIB? Complexity, lack of substitute, and interconnection, which are large and highly interconnected financial institutions hampered the orderly functioning of financial system, which in turn negatively impacted the economy. In short term, banks failed. In short words, banks failed, and hence global financial crisis came up. So if disruptions to the effective functioning of large financial institutions is not checked, that means if the functioning of these banks is not checked, it could pose risk to global financial stability as in 2008. Consequently, as a result of this, it was felt essential to institutionalize regulatory policies aimed at reducing the probability of failure of systemically important banks and the impact of the failure of these banks. So there is nothing new that we are trying to say. We talked about history in 2 lines. First line talked about that in 2008, this idea of GSIBs came up, where it was seen that large and interconnected banks or financial institutions, if they fail, they can negatively impact economy. How can they impact? They could pose risk to the global financial stability. And finally, it was felt essential to institutionalize regulatory policies aimed at reducing the probability of fall of these banks. So that's where the idea comes from. And now we can come back to talking about DSIBs. Now we can come to the present scenario. History is given. Now what does RBI has to say about this? RBI states. Now why are we writing about what RBI states? Because this is the present scenario. What does RBI feel about SIBs? And then how does RBI classify them? RBI states that should such a bank fail, there would be significant disruption to the essential services they provide to the banking system and the overall economy. So RBI is also saying the same thing, means RBI agreed with the idea of global SIBs, global systemically important banks, because RBI has the same thing to say, and hence we are reaching to the conclusion that this is the reason domestic systemically important banks classification started in the country. So the too big to fail tag also indicates that in case of distress, the government is expected to support these banks. Very important. So many banks have gone in crisis in the past because of NPAs, and DSIBs have gone in crisis in the past because of NPAs. The government did come and absorb their NPAs, and the government saved the economy. So this is a line that you have to add, that in times of crisis, the government comes to the forefront and saves these banks. Due to this perception, these banks enjoy certain advantages in funding. You can also talk about the 5 lakh, up to 5 lakh insurance that is provided. Okay, it also means that these banks have not just enjoy, they don't just enjoy some facilities or advantages. These also have to follow some protocols. It also means that these banks have a different set of policy measures regarding systemic risk and moral hazard issues. Intro, history or coming up of global SIBs. Then we came to what RBI had to say about global SIBs and how RBI has established domestic SIBs, or what are the advantages that they get and what are the instructions that they have to follow, additional protocol that they have to follow. Now what is this? Talking exactly about DSIB, we'll move to this. What are the instructions and what are the benefits for becoming a DSIB? That's your next body part. Falling in line with global best practices, RBI too adopted the DSIB framework in India from April 1, 2016. Remember this year that RBI adopted this framework not in 2008 but in 2016, and since then annually DSIBs have been identified, which became fully effective from 2019. Since then, every year, very important, RBI goes through the process of identifying the DSIBs. Now let's stop here. Let's stop before completing our body paragraph 3. After this, just technical details are there. How many of you are able to make sense of the structure that we are following for different body paragraphs? Just let me know in the chat section. And if you have any doubts regarding this structure, what we are doing with our paragraphs, then again, let me know in the chat section. Yes, Rohit, hello. If there are any doubts, let me know in the chat section. If the structure is not making sense to you or making sense to you, just send me a ping in the chat section. All right. By that time, let me display the more technical details behind DSIBs. So the indicators which are used, now we have come from past to present and we've told that when did RBI adopt this practice. And now what are the indicators used to classify DSIBs? The indicators which are used for assessment are size, interconnectedness. These are the exact indicators used by RBI. Substitutability and complexity. Look at this, you've written exactly this in the form of definition in your introduction. Now you're talking about the same words as indicators. You could see this in your objective part of the paper as well. That what are the indicators used by RBI? Alright. Alright, Suvendu. Based on the sample of banks chosen for computation of their systemic importance, a relative composite systemic importance score of the banks is computed. RBI determines a cutoff score beyond which banks are considered as DSIBs. Score for all the banks is calculated based on this index which has interconnectedness, substitutability, complexity and size. Alright, Khushbu. So now we are coming to technical details which you already have studied for your objective part. I think apart from this date of 2016 and this 2019, there is nothing new here. So yes, we've talked about the technical details. Now we'll talk about the real technical details. Based on their systemic importance scores in ascending orders, banks are mapped into 4 different buckets. 4 types of systemically important banks are there and are required to have additional. Now this is the important one here. What is the advantage of a bank being a DSIB? Government protects it. It gets advantage of its deposits are insured. Customers feel trust in that bank that my deposits are insured by government. My money will not go. My money will not be taken away by bank if the bank fails. Alright, that was the advantage. What are the additional instructions that they have to follow? Common equity tier 1 capital requirement on risk weighted assets ranging from 0.20% to 1%. Extreme criticality depending upon the risk bucket that they are plotted into, signifying their importance to financial stability. So the more tier 1 capital a bank has, the higher risk weighted assets they have to keep. The bank has to maintain within the specified band range from 0.20% to 1%. These are also subjected to differentiated supervisory requirements as compared to other banks. If a bank is not DSIB, there would be lighter controls, lighter supervisory requirements, and higher intensity of supervision based on the risk they pose to financial systems. All these 3 banks, HDFC, SBI, ICICI, they are supervised a lot by the government. Higher supervision is there, and they have to maintain. There is a common equity capital requirement from 0.2% to 1% additional on risk-weighted assets. Yes, 4 buckets are there, and SBI, your ICICI and HDFC, they are small, so they are in bucket 1. SBI is in bucket 3. That means it has to maintain this around 0.45%. So that's not exactly required for your exam, how much SBI is maintaining, how much other banks are maintaining, but just say 4 buckets are there in which these banks are classified. All these 3 banks, they're not in the same bucket. Now again we are reiterating that RBI identified 3 DSIBs, SBI, HDFC and ICICI, that are measured into the metric fixed for assessment. The process clearly outlines that bank having more interconnectedness should remain resilient by increasing core capital base. This is what they're talking about SBI. They should also measure up to the enhanced regulatory measures, if any. Other large banks which are not DSIBs, they should take a cue or a hint from the process and review their riskness using the same standards. That means DSIBs are important, supervision is high for them, but for other banks who are as big as HDFC or close to HDFC, they also have to follow such parameters, not officially, but they should follow such parameters. And now in the conclusion, we've talked about, see, all the technical parts have been talked about, history has been talked about, banks have been mentioned. Now, in the conclusion, let's write down that, first of all, let's summarize our answer, that if such a bank fails, the entire system can be hurt. And this is only because of classification of DSIBs by Government of India that Indian economy has relatively remained unaffected by the Swiss bank crisis. Silicon Valley Bank crisis, not Swiss bank. I'm sorry about that. The failure of a large bank anywhere, this is a summary point here. Summarize in one line. The failure of a large bank anywhere can have a contagion effect around the world. That's a very strong statement. The failure of a bank damages confidence in the banking system, which in turn affects the domestic and global economy due to the interconnected financial systems. India has established DSIBs, or too big to fail banks, to protect itself from 2008 and SVB-like episodes, that is Silicon Valley Bank crisis. Despite the recent bank failures in US, now we are talking about a current example. Despite the recent bank failures in the US, and by the help of this line, we will appreciate the DSIBs, that is what we have written a note about, which occurred more than a decade and a half after 2008 global financial crisis. Indian banks have largely remained unaffected. So that is the benefit of having classification into DSIBs. Yes. Yes, Suvendu, that's right. But it's, there is more trust for the DSIBs. Now, how many of you can answer this question? Not all the technical details, but at least if you see this on the paper and you have no other choice, will you attempt this question? Yes. See, yes, thanks, Khushbu. When you have to talk about such things, talk them in a way that they appear to the examiner. So last line or your last paragraph is the best way. If we have to appreciate DSIBs, we could as well have done in the body paragraph also. But we have history to write there. We have technical details to write there. We have other systems to write there. So we wrote it in the conclusion that, see, because of this classification, we have been insulated from this SVB crisis. All right. All right. So I'm happy to know that, Anand. Okay. So by the time you're typing, let me just display the second question. And second question is comparatively very easy, but there is a problem with the second question, and I'll tell you what the problem is. The question is, briefly discuss the issues associated with public-private partnership, PPP mode of investments or PPP projects in India. Answer in 400 words for 10 marks. Quickly in the chat section, just let me know how many of you will attempt this question, or how many of you have even read about it. Yes, Suvendu, that's right. That's right. See, the concept is just one about DSIBs, but different words are used, that if they fail, liquidity crunch will be happening. So make sure that you're using these terms in separate lines. All right. You will have, for some questions, really small amount of content, but have separate lines for them. And if you're repeating the same concept one after the other, then at least use different words, paraphrase them. Okay, Khushbu has read about it. And what about other people? What about other people? Have you read about it, or will you attempt this question, or will you just, try to skip this question? What will you do? Yes, all of you? Tell me in the chat section quickly, then we'll proceed. And I'll tell you what are the nitty-gritties involved with this question here. All right, Savendu. See, many portions. All right, so Vendu will attempt this. What about others? All right, so let me come back to the question. I hope by this day you have understood what is a directive. So the directive here is discuss or briefly discuss. Okay. Briefly doesn't, mean anything there. If the word limit is 400 words, then, you can't be very brief. You just cannot write 5 points and then be just done because it's written briefly. So word limit you have to adhere to. You'll have to write at least 350 words for this. Around 350 words for this for sure. All right, Anand will take it. All right. So briefly discuss the issues associated with PPP mode of public-private partnership mode of investment in India. Now this is an abbreviation, this is an acronym. Always remember, though this is a big one, just copy it from the question. Type the same spellings. Do not make any spelling mistakes. Write the full form and then use the word PPP in later parts of the answer. First thing. Second, see, there were a lot of issues regarding public-private partnership in India 5 years ago. But as of now, according to the budget also and according to the various steps also, that many issues are not as bad as they were earlier. In fact, the government is motivating or pushing towards more and more public-private partnership in the country. This has been seen in the case of health. You saw, like, if you underwent a COVID-19 test, it was probably through a private medical facility, not a government facility. With the availability of vaccines also, there were so many private hospitals that came up. For the testing and for the availability of medicines, for vaccines, so many private ventures, they came up. And this is the reason India could fight with the pandemic. So public-private partnership is something you have to understand and feel more than you have to cram about it. All right. So the issues are not the same, that this is not happening. Governments are not motivated. Nothing like that. Governments are very much motivated to move towards PPP, public-private partnership. And you have to read, if you have to read anything about public-private partnership, there is a separate website that has been created by Department of Economic Affairs, ppp.gov.something. DEA, Department of Economic Affairs, has given a separate website to PPP so that anybody who's looking for what is the data regarding public-private partnership in India, how many projects are actually going on right now, what are the initiatives that have been taken by government, can directly go to this website. Now you can mention this as a point in your answer that government is motivated, a separate website has been allocated for real-time data. Yes, Sunil, that's right, highways construction. Now there can be 2 or 3 questions from public-private partnership and we cannot cover all the 3 parts here, we're just covering one part. What are the 3 questions that can be asked from this topic, or 3 types of questions? Just let me know in the chat section. What do you think are the types of questions which could be asked from public-private partnership as a topic? This is a separate topic in your syllabus. What questions can you expect? Definition or explanation you'll be giving in all the answers. Our introductions are about explanation and giving real-time or current data. Our conclusions are giving about solutions and they are about appreciating what we have talked about in the question, appreciating the topic. So apart from the explanation, yes, types of PPP contracts, types of contracts, hybrid annuity model, build, operate, transfer model. So before going to your exam, at least go through them once. Yes. Benefits of public-private partnership, let's say in health sector, in education sector, or you could see, write a short note on benefits of public-private partnership. Need of PPP, need or benefits, that's right. What is the need of public-private partnership? These big projects, they are expensive and government does not have the latest technology for so many years. Governments change. So what they do is they indulge private sector to share profits and to build the project. Yes, you could have merits or needs. You could have demerits or issues associated with PPP or challenges associated with PPT. There is a middle question that appears, and that is going to be types of public-private partnership models. All right. There is not a fourth type of question that can be asked. If they want to make the paper really tough, then they could ask for a specific sector. Discuss the benefits of PPP or the advantages of PPP for a particular sector like health. Then you will have to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, or you'll have to look at health infrastructure around yourself, and then you will have to talk about that answer. All right. So whatever issues we talk about, they'll be going to be recent. They will be recent. And they will be time tested. We'll not talk about old issues regarding motivation government or laziness of government, nothing like that. All right, how will you start this answer? How will you start this introduction? Just let me know. Will you define what is public-private partnership? And if you're going to define, there is a World Bank definition that we have for PPP. Will you define what is public-private partnership? Or you have any other way of introducing? Let me know in the chat section. How will you start this answer? What will you write in your introduction? Do you have any data with regards to PPP projects in India? Alright, so Vendu has an answer. 75% private and public partnership in the coal, port, etc. sector, where 30% is only contributed by the public sector. That could be one of the examples there. So in our definition, in our introduction, let's start with a definition. But when the definition is not asked, we'll not use the word defined. And here we are using the definition which the World Bank gives to us. Talk about investment, little bit background of PPP. Yes, that can be done, Mehek, Khushbu and Anand. Yes, that's very good. So according to World Bank, public-private partnership or PPP is a long-term contract between a private party and a government entity for providing a public asset or service in which the private party bears significant risk and management responsibility, and remuneration is linked to the performance of that private party. Public-private partnerships typically are long-term and involve large corporations on the private side. Some of the commonly adopted forms. Now in first two lines, first line was definition, second line was extension of the definition. Making the definition a little clearer or validating the definition. Now some common forms. Common forms have not been asked, but we know about the common forms. So let's explain PPP using the common forms that we've used. Some of the commonly adopted forms of PPPs include BOT, build, operate, transfer. BLT, build, lease, transfer. Design, build, operate, transfer, DBFO. Operate, maintain, transfer, OMT, etc. All right. Now let's move on to talking about it. Whenever you have been asked issues about certain problem, about a certain thing, and PPP does not just come with issues, it comes with benefits also. So in one or two lines, just talk about the benefits in the second paragraph and then say, despite of the above benefits, the following issues are associated with public-private partnership projects. So India has systematically rolled out a PPP program, PPP program for delivery of high priority public utilities and infrastructure, and over the last decade developed one of the largest public-private partnership programs in the world. Very important for you. Again, this is on the website of public-private partnership of Department of Economic Affairs. This is directly mentioned there. So as per World Bank, India is one of the largest countries in terms of readiness for these projects, with around 2,000 public-private partnership projects in various stages of implementation. That is a lot. 2,000 projects in your country are based on public-private partnership and they are in various stages of implementation. However, there are underlying issues associated with PPP projects in India. They can be discussed as follows. So now can we give a list of the problems? Can we give a list of the problems if we are there? So yes, your problems, they will remain old. Whatever problems you have read about in your static portion, they will be the same problems, but we will not include any old problem. The first one is commercial viability. These are very big projects. And viability for water supply and sanitation projects is yet to demonstrate commercial viability to the public. We are coming up with different types of models for water and sanitation projects, but they still have to work about. Then there is hidden debt, because there is such a long gestation period that companies remain in a long-term debt. Again, the third one is about the completion of project, long gestation period. That means the company has to run a project for, let's say, 5 years, 10 years or more than that. And once the project is functioning, only then the profits start coming. Till that time, the company and the government, the private entity and the government, are both putting just money, and private entities might not be interested in such projects. All right. Then focus on economic benefits. They tend to focus on economic aspects of the project, sometimes to the detriment of social and environmental aspects. Write the word here, focus on only or exclusively economic benefits. So in the long run, you might see that if a PPP project is there, sometimes environmental impact assessment is not done properly, or a dam is created where it should not have been created because the company, it has invested there. And after, let's say, 2 years of operation, the company realizes that this is bad for the environment, but they cannot lose out on money because they have to complete the project to get profits out of it. Yes, conflict of interest between not the government and private company, but people and the project, people and PPP investment. When only the government is involved, such projects are stopped. But when the private entity is involved, they do not take a step back. Once they've got the contract, they will finish it no matter what the environmental or social costs are. Varied institutional framework. You can talk about red tapeism here. You can talk about delayed funds here because the government also contributes sometimes. So especially the regulatory framework developed by different states. Many states do not have a special law for public-private partnership. So it changes, the rule changes from company to from project to project. And again, if the government changes, then again they have to face red tapeism and corruption for their funds to be approved. That's why the number of companies which are actually enthusiastic about PPP projects in India, that is very less. Again, policy and regulatory gaps, inadequate regulatory framework and inefficiency in the approval process. How are contracts approved? As serious disincentives for developers and contractors. Let's say you are a contractor, you apply for a PPP project, but you are very sure that somebody else has links with the politician there. So your project will not be approved. Will you pay for the application fee? You will not pay. So there is lack of faith of companies in the policy and regulatory framework. Okay, so now what will you write in the conclusion? Or if you have any more points regarding the issues associated with public-private partnership, let me know in the chat section. For other people who are not writing the issues associated with public-private partnership, let me know how will you conclude your answer. Yes, Suvendu, that's right. Write it in your conclusion. That economic reforms, advantages, targets to achieve, problems will have to cope up with exclusive benefits in priority sectors like education, agriculture, MSME, etc. Just polish this a bit and use this in your conclusion. All the other students watching this right now, If you have any other issues associated with public-private partnership projects, let me know in the chat section. Otherwise, let's conclude this. Let's conclude this here. And since we talked about a problem, what should be our conclusion talking about? Or should we talking about the changes that have come up in the operation of PPP projects in our country? Let's see. So despite of the challenges associated, again we are ending on a positive note. Yes, Amit, give a way forward with solutions and effective examples. Despite of the challenges associated, public-private partnerships can be envisaged to become the ideal form of building and operating large-scale projects in future. So this is a self-made one line. Yesterday we talked about P2P, peer-to-peer lending, and we said that this is going, according to financial experts, this is going to be the future of lending and investment. So for public-private partnership also, just say that despite of the challenges, in the long run, your government cannot fund projects. The government cannot build bridges on its own. The private sector has to come up. It has already come up, but it has to come up 100%. So, despite of the challenges, PPP, Triple P can be envisaged to become the ideal form of building and operating large projects in future. The important role of Triple P was felt during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, you've talked about the issues, appreciate that a bit, or give a way forward or appreciate. It was felt during COVID-19 pandemic. It showed how Triple P can work in favor of the country, particularly when it comes to diagnostic capacity, accessibility and innovation. Then you know about this national infrastructure pipeline. PPP projects are related to infrastructure, so definitely mention national infrastructure pipeline. India launched NIP in 2020, National Infrastructure Pipeline, which envisages an investment of 111 lakh crores over 2020 to 2025. That is, it is still in operation. If you do not remember this data, rupees 111 lakh crores, no problem. But if you remember that up to 2025, this national infrastructure pipeline is going on. It's in operation. There are various projects being approved under it. And PPPs have been identified as a valuable instrument to speed up infrastructure development and investment that has been envisaged under NIP. So the government is saying from its own end that first of all, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we could see the strong impact that these PPP or private sector agencies create, and the government has identified the role of these projects in the national infrastructure pipeline as well. So this is a news from like 2 days ago. Recently, Oppo India set up its first PPP model Atal Tinkering Lab in Kerala. Atal Tinkering Lab, I hope you know about it, in collaboration with Niti Aayog's Atal Innovation Mission as its knowledge partner. So you can write all these examples or just write your national infrastructure pipeline and this example. Finally, conclude that PPP model can serve for tackling global challenges in the diverse fields from outer space. Private sector has been coming in space also. Private partnership along with ISRO has been seen in the space sector also. To climate change, from space to climate change, you can talk about health, education. In the diverse fields like outer space, health, education, environmental management, to fighting climate change, to create environmentally friendly, affordable, scalable solutions for a sustainable future. So we have not given a solution here. We have not talked about a way forward here, but we have made the question important. We have emphasized on the importance based on the current facts that we know. So that is another way to conclude your answers. All right. So that brings us to the end of this discussion. If you have any feedback regarding this session, then let us know at hello@edutap.co.in. I am Surbhi Sardana taking these live answer writing classes with you. Apart from that, if you have any doubts, contact us at 8146-207241. All right, contact us anytime. Book a session with one of our expert faculties and prepare for your success ahead. regarding this session, if you have any doubts, just let me know in the chat section. I hope the structure of this answer, this was made clear to you. And keep adding to the content you read here. Yes, you're welcome, Anand. You've read 2 topics here. Keep adding to that content. Let's say if you see these questions, all of them that we're discussing here. So add at least 1 more fact from your side before sitting for phase 2 and keep revising. The problem with most of the students is they feel that the syllabus for phase 2 is very diverse. Yes, it is. It is very large. But you need to revise. Revise and revise so that you get more confidence that at least this percentage of my syllabus is complete and I can take any questions coming from this part. Then move ahead. Alright, thank you all of you. I'll see you tomorrow again at 3 p.m. live on our YouTube channel. And tomorrow onwards, we'll be beginning with management. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow and take care. All the very best.